Just a quick introduction before we dive into lots of maps again. When we started this work, the idea was to create a data set for Sabah that will be accessible to all, so that FS projects can access these projections. You can personalize the maps with your data. So if you've got maps of where rice fields are, you can put your rice fields over our stress maps, our risk maps for rice. And that's the whole idea behind this data set. It's going to be at some stage open access, and all the science behind it, all of the code is also going to be open for people to look at and modify and things like that. There'll also be training available. And part of the idea is, the reason why we want to do this is, at the moment, everything's top down. And what we need, top down's great, it gives you some idea, but it may be complete rubbish. If the data that I'm using has got problems, if the study that we're using isn't applicable to the Sabah situation, then the projections are going to be maybe a little bit off. Okay? What we need is bottom-up, both feedback into our layers, saying, okay, your current situation is maybe lebih kurang correct, or it's complete rubbish. And when we come to talking about adaptation, because that's the whole point about this material, is that we can start to create the narrative of how do we co-design the adaptation strategies in Sabah. So the community, so it's not a top-down adaptation strategy. So there's no misadaptation. So the government doesn't decide that they're going to put solar panels in areas where it's not appropriate, whatever, okay? So this is the idea behind the work. So this is from the IPCC's, not chapter 2, the part 2, the impacts vulnerability study. And it's trying to raise the idea that you don't think about a single risk. What happens is you have simultaneous risks which compounds the effect. And just to go through this, and this SASH is something I would like to create an infographics for Sabah on. At the moment, this is IPCC's. The idea is you've got increasing drought and stress, increasing heat and drought, and you've got heat stress from rising temperatures. This is going to have an impact that it's going to hit your workers. They're going to have a reduced productivity. The drought and heat stress on the plants is going to reduce crop yields. Reduced productivity means your people are going to earn more money. And as Ibrahim said, you're also going to get food prices spikes. So, gaji turun, harga naik. Okay? And then that could have both local and global effects. And it's not just going to be heat. So if it's crops, you may have saline inundation, you may have cost of fertilizers being increased because of global conflicts, because of other countries are breaking down, okay? So when we talk about adaptations, we need to be a little bit more thinking broad about how the things will interact. Okay, so what we're doing today is we're taking the maps from yesterday and doing a little bit of a deep dive into the areas that we're planning to visit for the Valley Immersion, okay? So that you can start to think about what you're going to be doing in task 5. Okay, so Borneo and Timber, I don't know how many of you know this area. It's FMU 11. It's in, if I remember rightly, the Suk and the number 1 district. And there's 2 forest reserves, the Ulu Sungai Melian and the Saplut Forest Reserve. The total area is just shy of 100,000 hectares. And this area up here is predominantly rubber. And this is there from the FMP. The dark green is areas under natural forest. The light green are areas which are their plantation areas. Okay, and there's a community somewhere around here. Is that betul? Yeah. Yeah. So there's actually a community living within the forest reserves, and they are predominantly rubber producers. Yeah, so rubber is their major source of income, and probably some of them are also employed by Bornean timber. So when we were thinking about what layers to show you for this, we thought, okay, rubber has to be there, and then we thought, which other ones might be important? Okay, so, oops, what's happened here? Rubber. We took out the information for rubber. This is the rubber raster that you saw the other day. And the scales from 0 to negative 25%, so the reduction in latex. And you can see that most of it's here. So it appears that heat does not have too much of an impact on the rubber production within Bornean. Other areas, Turuk, okay? How heat is going to impact the workers. So again, exactly the same map as yesterday. Wet bulb globe temperatures, the scale. You can see Bornean falls within a high, moderate, elevated, with some areas in the extreme. Okay, becomes hitam. This probably isn't an issue for rubber workers because most of your work is done at night time. Okay, so in this case, you can offset your working hours to get away from the heat of the day. This is much panasan at how hot it is at the midday type thing. But it will impact some operations. In the timber plantations, it's actually harvested for timber, the rubber wood. So during harvesting and replanting, this is going to be an issue. So the likely adaptation you might talk about is mechanization. You're not going to ask people to go out and plant rubber seedlings, you mechanize it. At the moment, they put them in there, put in the buckle, and then walk. So it's all heavy manual labor. We then looked at how the precipitation to potential evapotranspiration. If you remember, this is that water balance, water in versus water out. If it's less than 1, you get very unhappy plants. If it's more than 1, you have happy plants. You can see at the moment, Bornean is already experiencing something like about 3 months of the year with a regular water deficit. And it becomes Sangat Turuk. This is where the community is, isn't it? Around here? Around there. So the community compartment is potentially going to be up to 9 months of the year with this water imbalance. So that's going to affect all of their rainforest agriculture. So their sayur is going to be impacted, their rubber is going to be impacted, etc. And then fire risk. This is the current fire risk map for Bornean. It is one of the reserves which burns quite frequently. They have a very active fire management plan. This area here, somewhere around here, is where it usually starts burning. The late Tid Pang when we used to visit him, was always up there fighting fires. And this is what their projection is. So they're going to have a massive increase in fire risks, okay? So when we start to talk to either the community or to Bornean Timber, what we need to start to say is, how do we adapt to this possible climate future? You know, it may involve, in some cases, these areas no longer being put into plantations.
Okay, so I'll be presenting now for the next 2 locations that we probably might visit for the valley immersions. It will be small kampungs. So the first kampung that we're going to present is Pitas Laut. So again, Pitas Laut is over there around the Sandakan area. So you can reach there by boat from Sandakan town. So this is mainly a fishing village of around 20 homes. And as a fishing village, you know, their main source of economy is fish. Their main food source is fish. And as you've seen the fish biomass map we presented yesterday, that East Coast area will see a huge decrease in fish. So again, I'm going to show the map. Again, another thing about Pitas Laut that I've learned from Neville supplied a lot of the info here, is that their water supply is rain-fed. So again, going to be very difficult to adapt if we don't adapt now. And again, no connection to the power grid. Another problem that they have to adapt to. So the first map that we're going to present is the fish biomass. So again, since they are fishermen, so fortunately for them, most of their fish are coastal, littoral fishers. So most of their income, according to Neville, is 40% shrimp that they can catch near the shore. But still, they do still catch larger pelagic fishes. And according to the map that we have, like you see here, a lot of the fish biomass within the area see a decrease in the reds down here. And again, even though our maps we don't account for coastal fishes such as shrimps, it's probably good to go to the ground and then ask them how if their catches of shrimps have been affected recently, because again, shrimps again temperatures will affect the fishes such as shrimps. So it's good that we go down and meet with the villagers, see how their food supply have been affected, because will be quite bad. Even though we don't have maps for the shrimps, it's still gonna affect them. Okay, not to waste time. So again, humid heat on outdoor workers. So this is considered the current trend of their heat. You can see all here is all high threads. But when we move on to end of century, the whole area is black. Again, since they are fishermen, a lot of fishermen, they usually go out to sea at night to fish. So probably this won't have that much big an effect to Pitas Laut as we might see here. But again, Pitas Laut does engage in some very small agriculture, such as chili farming, and according to Neville, in the past they used to farm watermelons. So again, maybe to a small section of the villagers, this might affect them. And then, so again, it's good that we go down to the Pitas Laut and see how much of them are engaged in outdoor activities, so we can see how much we can help them mitigate this effect in the future. And then change in dry season. So this is our annual projection for the change in rainfall. So it's projected that in this area, there might be an increase in consecutive dry days by 36%. In Pitas Laut, their water supply is rain-fed. And this, you can see about a decrease around this area, about maybe like 10% also decrease in rainfall. Back during the drought earlier this year, again, how many months of drought already made our water supply quite critical. I remember doing the Mountaintop earlier this year here in Camp Ong. We were given warning to limit our supply of water, right? So what again, this place whose water supply depends on the rain. So again, is another critical thing that we have to look on for them. And sea level rise and storm surge. Well, according to our storm surge and sea level rise map, apparently Pitas Laut is probably a bit safer from sea level rise. Maybe because this area here, according to Neville, their coastline is protected by mangrove. But still, this area of Sabah, according to our projections, is quite heavily impacted by the storm surges and sea level rise. If we pull off further into Buluran, that area there is all blue. But here probably Pitas Laut is probably a bit safer in this regard. But this area in general is quite bad if we zoom out, but it's not quite relevant right now. So the next area, the next kampung that we're going to look into, that we probably might visit during the valley immersion, is Kampung Wangkok, which is just a bit south from here, a bit down from here. And so yeah, this place, like Tinuhan, is mostly a farming community. I mean, they also do some other small scale farming. And if I'm not mistaken, the Wangkok pun dia pun correct. So they like Tinuhan. Many of the villagers here also work as rubber tappers. Wangkok, so you can see a lot of farmland, a lot of paddy fields. So again, potential impact on outdoor workers. So today, Wangkok, you can see a lot of high threats, but again, here is quite bad. I mean, today, but when you move to the future, so yes, even in this small area here of Wangkok, there is extreme heat threat to heat stress. So considering paddy, I'm not sure if we can shift to the night, farm at night. This is something we have to look into for them. But it's quite, again, this is something that they are in the area that is considered extreme threat. So it might be critical for them in the future. And then another one would be rice yield. So again, one of their main food source here is rice. So here you can see their area is within the reds, deep reds. So again, this is not accounting for other climate factors such as rainfall, precipitation. This is just temperature reduction due to ice shield due to temperatures. So you can see it's all in the deep red. And since they are also rubber tappers, this area also we see around maybe around 10% decrease in rubber latex yield in the end of the century, all in the deep red. We're not too sure if Wangkok raised any chickens, but again, in this area we can see to its end century, there is a severe threat for broiler chickens to raise here. So it'll be more difficult. So if Wangkok has raised chickens, you can see that it'll be much more difficult in the future. So again, probably they might die from heat stress, maybe the meat quality will be low, maybe the chicken will be less healthy. So again, this is what they might face in the future.